And that's what I want to focus on right at the top, because are we now on a day when the new portfolios are announced, time to end the band baja barat? Because India is staring at a slowdown, 6.8% growth in 2018-19. It's now dropped to 5.8. It's a 5-year low now. Unemployment rate is up 6.1%. It's the highest in 45 years. All these hard numbers, which we've been talking about even before the election, now returning to haunt the Modi government. And that leads me to some of the big questions I'm going to raise tonight. And we'll focus first on the cabinet portfolios. What message has Mr. Modi sent? Can Nirmala Sitharaman meet the economy challenge? Will Amit Shah end up pushing contentious issues like Article 370 and the citizenship bill? What effect will a strong MHA now have on the government? And who will drive the foreign policy of the country, MEA or NSA? Just some of the questions, but I want to focus first on the economy. Because it is the economy stupid. 5-year low GDP. Let me go straight across first to Rajeev Dubey, because you're the one who's been tracking this story for us at Business Today. Rajeev, your first signal. You've been saying this for a while, that the economy is in serious trouble. It now appears the trouble is even more serious than what we imagined.
And the bigger worry, Rajdeep, is that the economy has still not bottomed out. There's still steam left in this deceleration. So the economy is not bottomed out. I mean, this is what I've been repeatedly saying, that what we are seeing, 5.8% in this quarter, is not necessarily the lowest that we are going to see. The economy has been slowing down very, very dramatically in the past 3 quarters. But if you look at a 5-year trend, the economy has slowed down from 8% plus to about just under 7%. At the same time, what we are seeing is that the stock market is at an all-time high. The price earning multiples are at an all-time high. And so I have a word of caution as far as the investors are concerned, that one must watch out for that, because there could be a correction due now that all the hustle bustle of election, all the hustle bustle of new portfolios, new government are all over. There is going to be a bit of a lull as far as the stock market is concerned. The surprise elements are gone, most of them, and so there could be a correction due. But what I'm consistently saying is that we haven't bottomed out yet.
Okay, so that's, I'm going to focus really on the economy. Ask my producer to first start with all our questions on the economy. Chengappa, Editorial Director, India Today, you tell us, these numbers are coming on a day when there's been a bit of a surprise as Nirmala Sitharaman in the Finance Ministry. I'm sure the Prime Minister will say, what's the surprise? But the fact is that she is someone now who has her task really cut out. The good news is she's going to be 24/7. Unlike, Mr. Jaitley had other tasks to also perform for the government, she's going to have to put her foot clearly on the wheel of the economy. How serious a challenge is this? What's the message that's gone out with Nirmala Sitharaman as Finance Minister, according to you?
Well, firstly, let's look at it. This economic slowdown has been going on for the last 3-4 months. It's not just happened now. And despite that, Mr. Modi has got a massive mandate, which means that the people believe that he could pull them out of the trouble as well. Now, I think what Rajeev has outlined, and quite correctly, it hasn't yet bottomed out, is that you need radical measures. You need to jumpstart the economy. You need to take bold steps, whether it's on easing the credit squeeze, whether it's on consumption, whether it's on privatization of your assets to get more money into the business. How do you stimulate the economy to do, to start the growth process all over again? I think this is going to be his biggest challenge. We need to see, not just the budget. I think he can do a lot of these things even before that. How would he get the economy going is going to be his #1 priority at the moment.
You mentioned that the people of the country have reposed faith in Mr. Modi, but Shankar Iyer, one could argue that elections are increasingly, in a sense, separated from the economy. That the economy, if I'm sitting in Phulpur or if I'm sitting in Darbhanga, I'm not looking at GDP numbers, I'm looking at other factors while electing the Modi government. Now, we're going to have to talk real economics. You're going to have to look at the fact that unemployment has gone down and GDP is at a 5-year low. Do you get a sense that this is now something that's been building up for months and years, for quarters now, 3 quarters now, and now finally the government is going to have to deal with it?
Well, the first signs of this slowdown were visible in last July, and they were visible in the shrinking of credit available from banks and from NBFCs. Remember, out of 19 public sector banks, 14 were under prompt corrective action. The Lehman moment of India came when ILFS bombed and the NBFCs came under severe liquidity strain. The NBFCs are really the capillaries that bring credit to the last mile, and then that is what drives consumption in India. And for reasons best known to this government, they have been practicing an extend and pretend, or pretend and extend.
So did they fudge the data?
Issues that is,
did they fudge the data before
Sorry?
the elections? Did they fudge the data, in your view, before the elections to give the impression that we were growing at 7.2% in the fourth quarter? Now it's 5.8. Did they fudge the data, as some have accused them during the election campaign of?
I doubt whether the point can be proven by anybody who's saying that the election data was fudged. There are several questions about several pieces of data that come out of the government. Primarily, I mean, the big one is the GDP number, the inclusion of the companies from the Ministry of Corporate Affairs list. Those are issues that need to be settled. But you don't really need the GDP data to tell you that there's a slowdown. 3 days back, large telecom companies are shedding workforce. For the last 7-8 months, finance sector companies which are pushing apps and using technology are shedding jobs. Consumption of automobiles and auto ancillaries has been down. Almost every FMCG company in the country has recorded low. But forget all of this. Look at the general value addition that the number says. The output is one thing. Even the GVA is low. So the point that is that money makes the mayor go round. There wasn't money available with the banks. Money was being made available by NBFCs. The NBFCs came under stress. Third part of the story, the government was spending money and the government shrank its spending in the last quarter. The one thing that has grown in the GDP figure, if you notice, is the revenue expenditure of the government, 12.5%. It is the sole batsman which has scored double digits in the GDP numbers. So these are the things. Now, none of this is going to be sorted out overnight. These are problems that require structural changes. These are problems that require coordination between states and center. Right. Nirmala Sitharaman's first job would be to find around 3 lakh crores of off-the-book deficit that is off the books. That is money to be paid to Food Corporation of India, money that has to be paid to power companies, money that has to be paid as subsidies, money owed to state governments in compensation of GST that has been offshored to this year's account. These are real issues of spending. Now then you talk about investment, savings and other stuff. That requires coordination with people like Piyush Goyal, who's got commerce industry and therefore FDI processes, and with Nitin Gadkari, who's got medium and small scale industry. Remember, the large part of the economy is not on Dalal Street, it's elsewhere. So these are the issues that, now does the government have money to spend to stimulate the economy? I doubt very much, unless the Reserve Bank of India passes on 3 lakh crores to the government out of its reserves.
Let me bring
does the government, can it handle? No. Also look at the rupee, also look at the Iran issue, also look at the trade war. 25%,
so therefore there are multiple,
almost
I take your point, there are multiple challenges that this government is going to face at the moment. Rahul Srivastav, amidst these multiple challenges, till yesterday there was talk of Amit Shah being the finance minister. Now it's Nirmala Sitharaman. We've got a budget coming up on the 5th of July now, which is going to have to send some kind of, unlike 2014's budget. If you remember 2014's budget, it didn't really kickstart the economy at the time, even though there were favorable headwinds at the time. Now there are unfavorable winds. She's got a very tough task on hand. Is the government conscious of the fact that the economy is in serious trouble?
Rajeev, if you notice Prime Minister Narendra Modi's tenure, I will say that the budget as an exercise to change the economy has not happened. It is the exercises which are beyond the budget or between the budgets which have dominated as far as the economic activity is concerned. I have talked to some senior officials in the government. What they are saying is that one of the worst elements is that the core infrastructure industries have fallen by 2.6 to 2.6%. And that is where lies the real catch, that the government is facing a 3.4% deficit, fiscal deficit, not much elbow margin for the government to operate in terms of some stimulus for the economy. In that scenario, the budget is going to be very critical, that how does it create some
how
kind
do you
of a
stimulate
stimulus?
private investment at the moment?
That's not coming,
Where is
Rajeev.
the
That's not
stimulus
coming.
Where is the stimulus coming?
Very simple formula is to stimulate consumption. And one of the best things that the shortest possible thing that the government can do today is to make sure that the RBI has reduced repo rate by 2% in the last 2-3 years. That let the repo rate be passed on to the consumer and to the industry. Make it easier for people
Which
to
the banks
consume,
are not
borrow.
doing.
Banks are
and make
not
it easier.
lending. Banks are not
Precisely.
lending at the moment. Private investment is not being stimulated. Jobs are being cut. Look, we knew all of these problems before the elections. My concern is for 3 months, it almost seemed as if the country had forgotten that.
Repo rate has gone down by 2%. Banks have passed on 0.2. There's a 1.8% that banks are sitting on, which they can easily pass on. 1.8% will make a hell of a difference to corporate borrowings, even for regular running of their businesses. It will make them more efficient. I mean, these are things that the government could do almost immediately, which I think, you know, to some extent, I would say Arun Jaitley did not push on.
Did this debate get lost in the elections somewhere, Raj Chengappa? In the entire focus on the elections, on nationalism, on post-Balakot in particular, did the economy lose? And is this where the opposition lost the plot? They should have gone for the government on these issues. Now we are discussing them ironically on the day when the new government's portfolios have been distributed, Raj.
Well, yeah, and surely this was a problem that had been nagging. We knew that jobs was the #1 issue. Agriculture distress was there as well. But the government,
You had a cover story on India Today, I think, a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, that
just
there was
before
300 million distressed. And
that's right.
Would that distress vote count or not? But as it seems that the people have reposed faith on Prime Minister Modi to deliver, as I was saying earlier. There are several issues that we need to deal with when we look at the economy. And I think what one needs to advocate in this is radical measures. There's no doubt that you have to adopt that. And the challenge for Mr. Modi and his government is, would he take that up? Now, you take a look at Air India. You wanted to disinvest it. You couldn't do much with it. I mean, the Prime Minister's office and everybody was clear that it should go. You have to take the bold step to say, this is the kind of thing I'm going to do. Whether you also, like you were saying, to stimulate, there are a lot of measures that you could announce. We haven't yet seen the outline of that. Are you going to set up new zones like China does? To develop them? You have to come out with, apart from the regular stuff of, opening out credit.
There have to be short,
But
medium
is
and
he-
long
That's
term
right. I think you have to have a game plan that you would say,
Yeah, these are short-term
initially
measures.
credit
Rajeev,
squeeze,
I'll
what
let
am I
you-
going to do?
Rajeev.
Then if I'm going to stimulate consumption, what am I going to do? And if I want sustained growth, what am I going to do? So I think everybody's going to watch, does he have a blueprint? He's had the months to do it.
Does he
Does
have
he
a
have the
blueprint?
blueprint?
Rajeev,
Does
that's
he have a
what
blueprint?
exactly
Is it
the
in place?
point.
Or has this government invested so much of its equity in political management, it hasn't spent enough time, and now it's got, time is running out.
Rajeev, that's
It's going to have to
exactly
spend
my-
time on the economy.
That's exactly the point. Today they have announced universalization of the Kisan Samman Yojana, 6,000 rupees to all farmers. Now, it's a good move. It may spur some amount of consumption at the grassroots level in the villages and others. But, Rajdeep, it has to start that what Raj said. You have to have a game plan, not piecemeal measures with an eye on polls. You have to decide economy first, not votes first.
Because there's an election
that
again,
choice has to be made. You cannot be populist constantly and start thinking that it may help us in next election.
The question
it has to be
is-
thought that it will help the economy in the long run.
The question is Mr. Modi an instinctive reformer? Or is he someone who believes in a strong state at the end of the day, Shankar Iyer? Experience in the Gujarat model and indeed in the first 5 years is that Mr. Modi believes in himself and believes in the state. How much of is he willing to let go to make those big tough choices where the government no longer controls, in a sense, the pace at which the market moves, at the market economy moves?
Well, in Gujarat, he was far more fiscally conservative. He invests a lot in efficiency. He is a good listener of ideas, but everything that Mr. Modi does has to make political sense, and rightly so. He is in power, he is a political party. But here's the thing, if a C. Subramaniam or a Lal Bahadur Shastri or a Narasimha Rao have made their mark on India's history, they have done so by making moves that have an impact over centuries. So here's the thing that Mr. Modi could do. He could take all the banks and put it in a holdco and put a ETF, exchange traded fund, and list it. He could take all the central public sector enterprises, create a Temasek like sovereign fund and put that into it. He could take stock take all the NBFCs which are which have problems and ask the National Investment Fund, which God only knows what it's doing, to invest in it. He could invite sovereign funds to do. His big task is to find the money. Remember, whether you read Aesop's fable or the Panchatantra, it is the pebbles that are dropped in the pot that make the water rise. So if you want consumption, if you want investment, you got to find the money. So the first task of this government is to find the money. The second task of it, the government should be, it should list out the things that it does but should not do. Now that is real reforms.
In a sense though, Rajeev Dubey, it's now make or break. It's an interesting thing to say on the first day of a new government that it's make or break time. We perhaps said this even before the election, but that was in the context of winning or losing an election. Now it's the context of getting the economy back on track with some issues which are not even in the control of this government, like the trade war, like the Iran crisis. This is not even in the control of this government at the moment.
They have to be immediate steps. They have to be short term, medium term, and long term steps. And what I'm saying about immediate step is this: you reduce the interest rates and make everything more efficient. Make borrowing easier so that people can have the confidence to consume, to invest. Things like that. Nobody is going to, private investment is not going to come back just because the government thinks the future is bright. Private investment will come back when the capacity utilization rises. It's not going to rise without consumption. So you have to attack consumption first, and also I think we'll be shooting in the dark if we are trying to focus on exports right now, because we have 67% of our economy in the domestic economy. We need to focus on the domestic economy. We can get out of this just with the sheer domestic power of the domestic economy.
But now there are, today I get two views, Raj Chengappa. There are those who are saying, look, Nirmala Sitharaman in the finance ministry, Prime Minister is going to, PMO will remote control. The other view is, as I said, you finally got a 24/7 finance minister who's going to have to simply put her hands on the wheel and do nothing else but this. Which of these two views? One view is, this is the PMO in a sense, once again going to remote control a particular ministry. The other one is that you finally got a 24/7 finance minister.
Well, I think in any case, the Prime Minister will determine what is going to be the shape of the economic program that he has. So to say that he's running it behind is wrong. The finance ministry will implement whatever the policies that the Prime Minister believes is immediate and this thing, just like foreign affairs as well. So the Prime Minister, I think in this case, Mr. Modi, will have to decide, as Shankar was also saying, what kind of a reformer am I? What can I do in a situation like this? There is a crisis that has been staring at us for long. And he's got, I would think he would have already had all his people work out this 100-day agenda where he has the short term, where he can push through a lot of things. Maybe you'd see it before the budget, because you do need to do these kind of what I call jump starting of the economy that's there. You have to start sending the right signals that, look, we mean business on a lot of these fronts. This is what we're going to do. But let me say, when I looked at the cabinet portfolios, I was a little surprised that there was not a great amount of integration of ministries. Now, for instance, you've given, take a thing like industry, you've spread it out over 3 or 4 ministers.
That's
I
right.
would have thought you had a crisis, so you would have one single industry that looks at all the problems that are there and says, this is what I'm going to do for heavy, this is what I'm going to do for micro and medium, this is what I want to do outside, like what China does in terms of, where coastal growth belts that is there. I think when you look at the composition of the ministry, you're not seeing that integration.
Only
In energy,
consolidated. Only agri. I
only
think.
agriculture to some extent, but they never gave food processing.
rural development have
You
been
see, so
integrated.
I thought there, the Prime Minister, maybe he's waiting since he's done about 57, he's got another 23 more to go to then do it. But I see too many ministers having portfolios not related to their main portfolio. So railways, Piyush has, as well as he has industries and comms. What does he focus on? These are both. You could have given
Gadkari
Gadkari
is a huge challenge at the moment.
you could have given Gadkari ji the entire transport business, which is railways.
So you haven't
this thing.
downsized the government in the way you could
I'm
have,
not
or at least
saying-
made it more efficient.
Yeah, I would have thought, look, let's give...
Build synergies.
No, let's also give credit in the sense that he has brought lateral entry, for instance, made a very bold move by bringing Jaishankar as the External Affairs Ministry. Very good choice. You know, we are in a crisis internationally as well. You need the best minds to steer us through this. There is a trade war going on between US and China. We need to improve our relations with US. We have issues with China. We need to also make up with Russia on various fronts. So there is a crisis. So he has done good things in terms of the way he's composed it. But in some of the things I felt he missed out in this integration.
I just have a 30 seconds to you, Rahul Srivastava, at the end. Amit Shah. We focused on Nirmala Sitharaman because I think we all agree that the economy is the big challenge. But there's the other big challenge, or indeed the role that Mr. Shah is going to play, given issues like the citizenship bill, given Mr. Shah's own view on Article 35A and 370 in Jammu and Kashmir. Are we going to see now a Home Minister who's going to push ahead, particularly on J&K, where we don't have a popularly elected government at the moment? There's the pressure of elections. How do you see Amit Shah in that role?
Amit Shah didn't want to join the council, Rajdeep. There was, but the
Didn't want to join.
Didn't want to join. He wanted to remain party president. The push came from the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister prevailed because Amit Shah and he share a relationship. And I will go on record to say that there was a view prevailing in the government, murmurs in the RSS, and also the opposition charge that the Gujaratis have come to control, and perhaps they wanted to dismantle that. Amit Shah's role is going to be critical in the Home Ministry. Kashmir elections is a major challenge to ensure that there are peaceful elections and higher participation. Because of that peaceful conduct is going to be a major challenge. 35A is a promise the BJP and the RSS are committed on. That will need somebody like Amit Shah, not somebody like Rajnath Singh. There is Ram Mandir, there is NRC. West Bengal is the frontier which will
all of
operate
which are
through
polarizing issues, all of which are contentious issues. So clearly the government has its task cut out at various levels, whether it's the Finance Ministry, the Home Ministry, also External Affairs and Commerce. Thank you all very much for joining us. Always good to have professionals speaking on these issues instead of politicians. Maybe the Congress has done us a favor by not allowing spokespersons to come on the show. And maybe that will force us to look at the real issues of the day, especially jobs.